Gonna have to move. We're about to start recording. So I'm trying to get I'm wondering why I can't see the screen here. So we're finally going to get this started. This is going to be part 2 of Make a Website. Let us hit resume. Let's see where we left off. Okay, so boundaries and space, the box model. So an important part of styling a web page with CSS is organizing boundaries and space. Every page element has boundary and space properties that can be controlled using CSS. The CSS box model illustrates each of these properties. Okay, so kind of forgot again. Let me go ahead and open over here, see if I can get a chat. Just in case anybody's tuning in, I want to be able to communicate. Okay, let me go on to my YouTube. One more second. Okay. Okay, so now I'm on. We're on here, everything's loading. Okay, so the box model. Should probably update this. Something like the box model. Learn about the CSS box model. Okay. Okay, so now an important part of styling a web page with CSS is organizing boundaries and space. Every page element has boundary and space properties that can be controlled using CSS. The CSS box model illustrates each of these properties. So instructions, observe the CSS box model diagram to the right. We have content, which includes text, images, or other media contained within an HTML element. We have padding, which is the space between the content and the border. You can think of this like inner space. Border, the outline of an HTML element. You can think of it like a picture frame that contains the element. And as we can see it here, that's the border. The middle part would be our content. Padding goes around it. Then the margin is at the very outside. The space between the HTML page element and the next nearest element. That's our margin. After you've familiarized yourself with the box model, click Next to continue. Again, content in the middle. Then we have padding around it with a border around that. And in the very outer, we have margin. Let us go next. So create a border. The border property can be used to visually define a page element's outer edge. In CSS, the border property's value requires 3 parts: thickness, type, and color. Thickness sets the thickness of the border using pixels, ems, or rems. Type sets the border type. Common options are solid, dotted, and dashed. There are many others. Color sets the border's color using named colors, hex, or RGB values. The CSS below gives a paragraph element a solid black border that is 2 pixels thick. And as we could see here, paragraph is given border 2 pixels solid black. Instructions: the web browser currently displays Tundra Gallery's homepage. Let's give each gallery item a border. In main CSS, locate the .gallery item class selector, add border 5 pixels solid, hashtag FFF, like so. So if I go to main CSS and I look for .gallery item, we have .gallery item, we go under margin and we add border with 5 pixels solid, hashtag FFF, semicolon. Let us run this. Let us actually see the change here on the right. When I click run, there was a little spacing here that was added. This border, you guys can't see it, but we'll see right now. Let us go next. Working with padding, the CSS padding property controls the empty space between the page element's content and its borders. Increasing a page element's padding makes the space around the content more spacious, while decreasing it makes the space more compact. So we have this paragraph with padding 20 pixels applied. The CSS above would give paragraph elements a padding of 20 pixels. In main.css, locate the .page description class selector and set its padding to 30 pixels. Click run to see the paragraph element's padding has increased on the web page. So again, let's go into main.css, look for page description class, which is here. We go under it and we do a padding, and let's do that 30 pixels. Run this and look at the padding around the paragraph. We have this nice padding now. So if we go ahead and hit next, working with margin, the CSS margin property controls the space between different HTML elements on a web page. Use margin to bring page elements closer together or to move them farther apart. The CSS below ensures 2 rem of space between elements with the class answer and surrounding page elements. Here we have the answer class. It's given a margin of 2 rem. So in main.css, locate the .gallery item class. So we go here, we go to .gallery item, and they want us to do margin 2 rem. Wrong place. We want to look for answer. It seems like there is no answer. Let me control find answer. So it is not. We're going to add this. Oh no, locate gallery item. I'm sorry, I was reading here. So we're gonna look at .gallery item, which is located here, and we're doing a margin of 2 pixels. Margin of 2 pixels. Change the value to 20 pixels. Huh. Okay. 20 pixels. Run it. Click run to see the space increase between each gallery item. Nice. So let us hit next. More margins. The margin property creates space on all sides of a page element. It's also possible to set separate margin spacing on each side of an element. Let me see over here. Okay. Additional margin properties. Margin top sets the top margin. Margin bottom sets the bottom margin. Margin left, left margin. Margin right, right margin. Note. Below, we will change margin properties for a div that encloses HTML figure elements. Figures are used to organize visuals, such as photos and diagrams. Okay, so in index.html, figures with the class gallery item are contained inside a div with a class gallery. In main.css, locate the .gallery class selector, set the margin property to 20 pixels, margin top property. Okay, so what shall we do here? Go main.css, locate .gallery class, here, set margin top property 20 pixels. So we want to do margin top 20 pixels. Run this. Notice the change in the web browser. .gallery div now has more top margin space. Let us go next. Understanding display. Okay, so display is also pretty important. So using borders, padding, and margin allows us to control boundaries and space for individual HTML elements. But what CSS properties are available to move elements around on the page and create unique page layouts? The CSS display and position properties help accomplish this. Display. Not all HTML elements are displayed on a page in the same way. Display types determine how HTML elements will be arranged in relation to each other. The diagram to the right illustrates the block and inline display types. Instructions. In the diagram, notice the two dotted rectangles represent web pages. HTML heading, paragraph, and unordered list elements are block level. Each appears on its own line on the web page. HTML image and anchor elements are displayed inline. They appear on the same line as their neighboring elements on the web page. Familiarize yourself with the block and inline display types, then click next to continue so we can stare at these and look. This is an H1. We have empty space, and then the paragraph goes under it because it's also a block level. It takes up its own block. And as you guys can see, inline elements such as images, they don't take up the whole block, so you can actually have multiple images on one line, same as spans or these anchor elements. So let us go next. So keep it inline. Display types can be overwritten in CSS by using the display property. For example, we can make list items appear on the same line by setting display to inline. So we have here list item is selected, and we're doing a display of inline. So note, below we will encounter an HTML nav element. Navs are used to organize site navigation menus on a web page. So our instructions here, on the Tundra Gallery homepage, notice the navigation bar on the bottom left. In index.html, this is represented by a nav element containing a UL with 3 list items. Read through the HTML and locate the code. In main.css, locate the nav li selector, give it a display property of inline. So first in index.html, in main.css, we're locating nav li, which is probably down here. There it is. Give it a display property of inline. So we're giving it a display property of inline. Run that. So our nav bar got inline. Let us go next. Using float. Nice work. The nav bar is starting to come together nicely. It would be even better if we could get to the contact button to fill in the empty corner on the bottom right. So let's look at that right now so we can bottom right contact, even though we wanted to fill in the empty corner on the bottom right. To achieve this, we can use the CSS Float property. By using Float, we have the option, where am I? We have the option of floating elements left or right. Consider the example code below. The class selector .logo floats left, and the ID selector search bar floats right. So we have .logo, so this class has float left, and then we have this ID search bar with float right. So let's arrange the contact button using float. In main.css, locate the class selector .contact button and assign it float right. So easy enough, we go into main, we locate class selector contact button, which is probably down here. Contact button is in here with no style yet. We're going to float right. And if we look at this contact button down here, it should float it to the right. If I open this a bit, go down here, we have our float button to the right, or our contact button to the right. So let's go next. We have display flex. In the web browser, the gallery images that are arranged neatly in rows are now stacked on the left side of the web page. The CSS display value that arranged the images flex has been moved. In addition to other capabilities, flex can be used to easily align multiple page elements horizontally. In the example code below, there is a div with class parent. So we have this div with class parent. To make children of the div align horizontally on the web page in CSS, we can use parent display flex. Children elements of the div with class parent will now align horizontally. We can make sure no child element moves off the page by using flex wrap. So here again we have that div with the class parent. We give it a display flex and a flex wrap. Finally, to center rows of children elements, we can use justify content center. So we have our .parent with display flex wrap, and justify content center. So before we start working with flex, expand the web browser view by clicking the arrow button in the top right corner. Take a moment to notice that the image gallery is arranged vertically and off-center. Next, locate the .gallery class selector in main.css. Set the display property to flex. Click run. See the gallery images align horizontally. So let's actually look at that. So right now, this is what we're getting. They're all just kind of like right under each other. Not the best experience, if you ask me. So let's do what they're telling us to do, which, if we go down here, so we did that. Take a moment, we did all that. Next, locate .gallery class selector in main CSS. So we go here, we got the .gallery there. Set the display property to flex. So we do flex. We do display and flex. Run that. We'll make it big right now. Let's click. Now we're getting all sideways there. Not yet the best of the best, so let's continue messing with this. Okay. Let's see what is next on. It says there's a problem. If you look to the right side of the web page, some of the gallery images are cut off. To solve this, below the display flex property, create a flex wrap property and set it to wrap. So we go back into gallery, I think, and we're doing a flex wrap with a property set to wrap. Run that. Let's press this again. Now we're getting them to line up next to each other responsively, much nicer. 3. Finally, we will center the gallery images for the .gallery selector. Add the property justify content and set it to center. So we just go back to dot gallery. We give it a justify content, and we're leaving it centered. Run, and we have passed. Looking nice, looking very nice. Let us hit next here. Working with position, the CSS position property enables you to position HTML elements in exact locations on a web page. One useful value for this property is relative. The value position page. This value positions page elements on a web page relative to where they would normally appear. So, by first setting position relative, you can then use the CSS properties top, left, bottom, and right to shift an element away from where it would have normally appeared on the page. The code snippet below moves a div with the class container 10 pixels away from the up and 10 pixels away from the left side of the page. So we have this container class position relative, top 10 pixels, left 20 pixels. Ever click a button on a web page that seemed to move down and then back up like a real life button? We can implement this trick using the position property. In main.css, locate .contact button A, which is the selector for anchor elements that have a parent with the contact button class. Beneath the properties already listed for the .contact button A selector, add. So if we go into main CSS and then we go into our contact button, which, let's go down here, position relative. So contact button A, we want to go ahead and do a position and set it to relative. Let's run that. Next, locate the .contact button A active selector. :active is a pseudo class selector which we use to style an element only while it's being clicked, and add the following CSS to the .contact button. Where's this? Here it is. Go here, do top 2 pixels, run. Now it's looking again much nicer. Let's check out that button. Got that push down. Okay. Anyways, let's go back here. And that is actually all of them. Let's go. Review. Nice work. You've learned a lot. Let's review the web and CSS concepts covered in this lesson. Css Box Model illustrates the space and boundary properties of an HTML element that can be controlled using CSS. CSS Skills Border sets the outline of an HTML page element like a picture frame that contains the element. Padding sets the amount of space between an element's content and its border. Margin sets the amount of space between HTML element and the next nearest elements. Display, property that determines how the selected element will be arranged in relation to other HTML elements on the page. Inline, display value used to arrange HTML elements on the same line as neighboring elements. Flex, display values that allows us to easily align multiple page elements vertically or horizontally. Float, property used to float HTML elements left or right of neighboring elements. And position, property used to position HTML elements in exact locations on a web page. So it is actually pretty late today, and I would have continued on and finished building with Bootstrap section, but I shall continue this on my next lesson, especially because my dog has been barking and it's probably been annoying for you guys this whole time. But I enjoyed this. Hope you guys did too. Comment down if you guys have any questions. I'll make sure to answer them as soon as possible. like and subscribe, guys, and I shall see you on the next one.